Pleasant good afternoon, everyone. Right? Chef Dominic here, pastry chef and the facilitator for your DIY or DIY baking 101 to your future. Right? So this week our bread basics class begin. Right? And I sent a recipe to you guys, and this is the exact same recipe. If my camera won't focus on here, this is the exact same recipe. I have my water, my fats, my milk powder, my yeast, my sugar, my salt, and all my flour is weighed out. Everything is weighed out here. So this recipe is what I would like to call a go-to recipe. You can use it for regular hops. You can use it for dinner rolls, pan loaves, whatnot and whatnot. So we are going to get moving onto this recipe right away. So in the bowl, we have our flour here. But before that, we need to go and put our fats in the microwave to melt. So I will put this in the microwave and then we will continue our process. Right, so I'm back. So while our fats are melting in the microwave, we have our regular all-purpose flour here. This is just regular all-purpose flour. No rice in it, just nothing in it, just the plain flour. So next we're going to add is our powdered milk, right? We are using regular dairy powdered milk and we are putting it on this side of the mixing bowl, right? All the powdered milk. And remember that I said we doing the yeast separation method. So this is our Fulmipan 2-in-1 super yeast. We are going to put it on the opposite direction as compared to the milk. So we're putting it here, right? Then now we are coming with our sugar. Remember I said the sugar goes directly on top of the yeast to start to give the yeast life, right? Then we move on to a little bit of salt. We do not want much. So we want at least a half teaspoon of salt. Or, well, I don't scale out the salt per se. In your recipe, it calls for 0.7 grams if I'm not mistaken. I am putting 2 teaspoons of salt, which adds up to the same amount on the opposite side of everything, right? So in this bowl here now, we have our milk powder on one side, sugar and yeast on the next, salt on the next. We have our water here. This is regular room temperature pipe water. Remember that I said for it to activate the yeast, it needs to be between 100 to 110 degrees. So the melted fats, when it's in the microwave, it's heated up and melted. That is what is going to bring the water up to temperature. This is regular water here. This is probably between 20 to 30 degrees. The melted fats in the microwave is what is going to bring this up to 100 to 110 degrees. So I'm going to acquire my fats now. Be right back. Okay, so our fats have not been melted properly as yet. So, as I said, the yeast separation method, this allows the yeast to start to live with the sugar and everything. And then when you warm water with the fats meet it, it actually brings it to a more better life, right? So as I said, when I made mention when we do the separation method, then we mix them all together. The salt still does not have an effect on the yeast, right? So our fats are ready now, so I shall be right back. Right? So this is our two different fats melted here, 1.9 ounces of butter and 1.9 ounces of cooking. So what I'm going to do to this now, I'm going to add it directly to our water, right? It's going to separate, yes, because as we all know, water and oil does not mix. We want to scrape everything out and leave it in the mug just like this until our next step, right? So what we're going to do now is we're going to take a whisk and combine all of our dry ingredients together, right? The sugar, the yeast it has already been awakened, our milk powder and our salt. We are going to combine everything together now, right? Now you can use the three-sieve method for this as well, but subtract the sugar and the yeast from the three-sieve method and put those in last on top of each other so they can live. The salt and the milk powder can be done in the three-step method, but just add the sugar and the yeast last, right? So what we're going to do now is we're going to take this over to our stand mixer here, right? This is our 5-quart stand, 6-quart stand mixer. We are going to put it on. We are going to outfit it with our dough hook, right? Raise it up, and then we are going to add in our wet ingredients all at once, right? This is our water that has been brought up to temperature with the use of the melted fats, right? We want all of it here. Then we're going to start off on a slow speed to mix in the wet and the dry ingredients. So as I said, you can use a stand mixer if you desire, but for persons who want to mix it by hand, which is the old school method, you can go about doing it that way as well. So as the ingredients start to incorporate, we raise we raise the mixer speed one at a time, because if we raise it all the way, we're going to be covered in flour all over. So we do not want that, right? So now we increase it by our next one. As you can see, it starts to beat up a little faster. The ingredients are getting more and more incorporated now, right? Right, turn it down by one, because it is getting on a little too antsy, right? Let some more of the ingredients now. The flour that has been at the bottom has came to the top now, so it needs a little more time to incorporate. Then we can raise the speed some more, right? So we raise it up some more now, right? And we raise it up a little more again. This now helps incorporate some of the remainder dough that at the bottom that has not yet been incorporated. It is pulling it away from the sides now. So now all of the dough is being mixed together in one ball in the middle. Alright, so we raise it again, and we raise it one more time. So this is medium to medium high speed. On a stand mixer, this would rate between 6 and 8 on the stand mixer. And you want to leave this, let this mix for approximately 5 to 8 minutes. Right? You want enough gluten development in your dough. This is where the sugars and the gluten in the flour come together and they expand, right? So now you want to leave this and let this mix for quite some time. Right. So guys, this has been mixing for approximately a few minutes, 5 minutes. As you can see, the dough is starting to pull away from the side of the bowl and form a ball. Look at it, as you can see, it's starting to pull away from the side and form a ball in the middle here, right? If I put my hand here, there's a certain level of heat coming from it. That is where the warm water activates the yeast and gives off heat. Right, so we're going to continue let us mixing for a little while again. Right, just go back to see what it looks like in between. Right, guys, so as you can see now, it has fully pulled away from the side of the bowl and it is just beating in the middle. This is a well-formed dough on the inside of your mixer now, right? So at this point in time, for persons using a mixer, this has probably been 5 to 6 minutes, right? As I said, you want to have it at least 5 minutes in. Once it forms up like this, you know it is ready, right? So you want to take it off. You do not want to over mix your dough. Do not do that. Then your dough will be dense when you're making your products, right? So you're going to take it off now. Bring your bowl out, right? So this is it here. It is a well uniform dough. So what you want to do now is you take some regular all-purpose flour and you're going to dust your surface. Do not be stingy on the flour. It actually helps to form your dough a lot easier, right? Right? So what you do now, make sure your hands are floured and clean as well. And then you remove the dough from your hook, right? Make sure your dough hook is completely clean, right? And please separate dish now. Now, put back some more flour on your hands. Make sure it's dusted well, both of your hands, dusted well. And now you want to come around on the other side. Come around on the other side here. No, you come around here. Right. So they can see. So now you want to scrape your dough out from the bowl onto your floured work surface. As you can see, it's a very soft and a pliable dough. That is what you want, right? All of the remainder dough at the bottom and on the side of your bowl, you want to get as much of the dough as out as possible because this recipe is scaled to a certain amount. So if you're set to get 24 hops from this recipe, which I'm not mistaken is the recipe I sent you guys, you want to get all of the dough out in order to get all of your hops made, right? So you get majority of the dough, at least 98% of the dough, you're good to go, right? So now, no more flour on your hands, you take a little bit and you dust it over the dough, right? This is what we call dust and flour. You take off all the bits and pieces. Make sure there's no jewelry on your hands, anything, and your hands are clean, right? And then you now pull the dough to yourself and start to knead it, right? Move it around, pick it up. You want to form the dough and bring it in as a ball, right? Now, a lot of persons know this kneading trick from long ago, which is pull it to you and push it out. Right. That is the way to go because persons who mixing it by hand in a bowl have not gotten a lot of mixing done as compared to using a mixer. So you want to continue doing it like that for at least a next persons mixing in a bowl by hand will be mixing for at least 10 minutes, right? So you want to take a piece of your dough off and do what is called a mirror test, right? You want to be able to see through your dough, right? On the top here, you want to be able to see a mirror through your dough without it breaking, right? Dough is a little bit of soft now, so take out our next piece, and once you can see that as transparent through there, you know your dough is ready. You want to see through the dough, right? Transparent without it breaking easy, right? So now that is acquired by mixing it in a mixer for at least 5 to 8 minutes. By hand, you would want to knead your dough for at least 10 minutes for the most, right? By doing this method, pull back and push out. That is the method you want to use, right? But we will not do that now because we have already used a mixer, right? This gives us enough gluten development in the dough. So you want to fold your dough over and take off any of the excess dry mixture that has been there. Flip it back over and you want to pull it together and form a good cohesive ball, right? So when you turn your dough over, you have a nice smooth bread dough, right? Now, this dough is ready to go and proof, or what persons would call raise. So in this case, we use non-stick cooking spray. This is an unflavored one. This is palm. Persons can use melted butter, oil, whatever the case may be. We use this because it's very cost effective and easy. And you're going to lightly spray the bottom and the side of a very large bowl, right? All depends on the amount of dough you're making. It depends on the size of bowl you would be going to use. Pick up your dough and continue forming it in your hand to make a lovely shaped ball. This allows for even raising of your dough. And then you place it in the bottom of your pan, right? And you take your spray now and lightly spray the top of your dough, or you can brush it with oil and butter. This is to prevent it from sticking, right? And now, a lot of persons use cling film to cover the top of their dough. Using cling film now allows your dough to be covered very nicely, and you can see you can check the condition of your dough. But cling film now does not allow gas to escape properly. So in this case, what we will do is we will cover it with cloth. It doesn't have to be a damp cloth. It can be a regular cloth. And we cover our dough, right? And you want to put this in a warm place to rise for at least an hour to hour and a half, right? Until it's doubled in size. So what I've done, I'm going to put this inside of my convection oven, right? My convection oven has been, well, it's black on the inside, so there's a certain level of heat, right? I will put this in there and I will see you guys back in an hour when it has doubled in size. Then we will do what is forming, all right? So once again, look at what the dough looks like before it goes in for an hour to an hour and a half, right? See you guys shortly. It has been approximately 1 hour, right? Some cases it will be an hour, hour and a half to put your bread to raise, or commonly known as proof, right? So before we continue rolling out the dough, so give my hand a little sanitize, make sure it's clean, right? So as you can see, that's why looking at the top of this cloth, you have seen how big this bread dough has risen as compared to what it was before. So now we are going to remove the cloth, right? As you can see, remember what it was inside of the bowl. This is what it is now. Shake it. It is light. It is airy because it is full of gas. Now, this by far has to be one of the most enjoyable moments when I am making bread to punch down the bread dough, right? As you can see, as compared to what it was in the bowl originally, when it raises, the dough itself expands, right? So what we're going to do now is we're going to get our scale, right? Alright, so I'm going to show you guys the method of weighing out your dough to get the correct amount of dough for each hops, right? The original method, the measurement I would go would be 2 ounces, but in this case, I will go to 3 ounces for you guys to see how big it can originally go to. So I'll bring it down a little bit more. So what you want to do is take off pieces of dough and place it directly onto your scale. My scale has been sanitized prior to using. You want to get at least 3 ounces. On this scale, that will be 30, right? That is 3.0 ounces. And you put it off to the side, right? And you continue going. 29. You put a small piece again. 3.1, you take off a little piece, you put it on. Right? 29. 30, right? So you want all for your hops to go at 30 and then you separate it on the side. Now, for when you're doing loaves, right? You want it to be bigger. So instead of 3.0 ounces, you want to get 16 ounces, right? 16 ounces is 1 pound, right? You want to be able to get 16 ounces on your scale in order that you can obtain a very good size mini loaf, right? So this is 16 point, right? So 14.5, 15, 15.8, 16 ounces of bread dough. You put that aside and then now you continue, right? Tear your scale back to 0 and you continue scaling out for some smaller hops, right? As I said, we'll be doing 3 ounces in each 3.1. That is fine. That works as well, right? I'm going to do our next 16 ounce dough. So we'll be doing two loaf pans today, right? 11, so that's 12 basically. 13.9. So I need at least 2 more ounces. All right, that is too much. 14.9, 15.1, 15.3, 15.4. Right? I have to take off a little bit because the scale was a little off. Right. So this is, right, this is it here. So when doing this, you need to move very quickly because as you can tell, while doing this, the dough actually starts back rising. After you deflate the first amount of air, it starts back rising. So I'm going to continue rolling out this and I will continue forming this and then I will meet you guys back after. Right guys, so we have officially weighed out all of our bread dough. These are our 3 ounce pieces and these are our 16 ounce pieces, right? Now, as I said, you need to work fast because these start to rise again. So what you want to do is you want to work with the first one that you scaled out, right? So you're starting from the first one and you go back. So this is the first one we have here, right? So I have a few toppings here, which is just some cheese and thyme and all-purpose seasoning. So I will do some plain ones first. So while it is there on the counter, the top starts to dry out. So you want to pull the dough in at the bottom, rest it down on the counter, and you want to cup your hand in the shape of a C, right? Coming a little closer, cup your hand in the shape of a C. I have already prepped my pan. It is greased. I use the pan. You can use butter if you desire, oil, whatever the case may be. Cooking as well, melted cooking works fine as well. So I want to cup your hand in a C shape, and you want to go in a circular motion with the dough in your hand, right? Carry it in a circular motion, and you work with it fast, right? Keep twisting it fast, right? As you can see, this dough is still a little wet. So what we will do now is to make it a little easier, right? Just sprinkle a little bit of flour there with the dough, right? Bring the dough back in as a ball, right? and you work with it, right? When the flour dries up on the surface, it actually stiffens up the dough a little bit and you roll with it, right? You roll with the dough and you keep on rolling, right? Well, right, so this is what happens. All right, this is an experiment you guys can see. This is what happens when the dough is still a little too wet, right? These are some of the mistakes, common mistakes you will get, right? These are experiments here. So this is what happens when the dough is a little bit wet. So what happens now, when you leave it on the counter, it actually dries out on the top a little bit. So you want to leave it for at least it starts to rise and thing. So I'm going to clean up my hands and I'll come back and I'll roll a next one for you and you see what actually happens when it's rolled properly. Right. So you just saw what happened when our dough is a little too wet. So in this case now we have a next one here. It is a little softer. We fold the wet part of the dough inside, place it down on the counter, and then we roll it in a C-shaped motion. As you can see, it is rolling a lot easier because all the wet dough has been placed on the inside of it now. Any little wet dough on the outside, that will happen again, right? This here is what will happen. So you want all the wet dough on the inside before you roll it. As you can see, it actually forms a perfect ball and there's a little piece at the bottom here where all the wet dough has been locked in, right? So you just continue rolling until you find a perfectly shaped circle, pick it up and place it on your pan, right? That is it right there. You pick it up and place it on the pan and you go again. As you can see, all the wet dough is at the bottom. So you want to push all of that wet dough inside, right? Put it on your counter, dab a little flour on your hand and you roll, right? Keep rolling until your dough forms a perfect ball. Pick it up, place it on your pan. You do not want to overwork this dough. Once you overwork the dough, your bread will come out stiff. It will come out heavy, right? Make sure and keep a little bit of flour on your hands and you roll. As I said, circular motion with a C shape and you keep rolling, right? So I'm going to finish off rolling the rest of these doughs because you have to work quickly. And I will see you guys back here shortly. Alright guys, so I'm currently finishing rolling a plain hops. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you guys some with some cheese and thyme in it, right? So it's very simple doing it with some fillings in it. So this is what you do, right? You pick up your dough, right? Hold it in your hand like this and take some of the filling, not much, and put it in the middle, right? A little goes a long way. And then you want to bring your dough in. Bring in your dough, locking the cheese and thyme inside. And then put it on your counter and roll like originally. So now you're rolling the dough with the filling inside of it, right? Simple, effective. You get a cheese and thyme filling inside of your roll, right? I'm going to do a next one with the same filling inside of it. Just put a little bit of the filling. And as I said, these things you can put anything you want in it and you can put anything you want on top of it. So this one now, I am going to roll it out as per usual. But before I put this one to bake, I am going to sprinkle some thyme on top of it, right? Simple. And you place it on top of there, right? So we did two with fillings. As I said, these you can put any type of fillings you want. I'm just going to do a plain regular one here once again so you can see the rolling method. Bring all the wet dough in, put it down, and roll. C-shape, cup shape with your hands, and you roll your dough in a circular motion, right? Keep a little bit of flour on your hands so the dough doesn't stick as much, right? Because remember, this is a wet dough we are dealing with. When you're finished, perfectly shaped ball, pick it up and place it on your pan. You do not want to jumble these up together because this dough tends to expand, right? So I will see you guys back again shortly when I'm rolling out the big doughs. Right, guys. So as you can see, these are all perfectly shaped. But seeing how I was doing it for time constraints, I did not get to focus a lot on shaping it better. But these are how they generally will come out. As you can see, these are already started to rise because they were here first, right? So we'll set these aside and we're going to work on these big doughs here now, right? So doing these bigger doughs, right? Put this one to the side and focus on this one, right? Press it down a little bit because it starts to rise as well. Knead it back some more to have a very thin dough, right? And what you want to do now is now take out your rolling pin, or you can do this by hand if you desire, right? You want to slightly press it out, right? You want to make sure the dough is wet, dry out with a little bit of flour. Sorry, my mistake. And then now you just slightly push it out, right? Push out your dough, right? You do not want to push it out too much because, as I said, this dough will rise in the oven, right? Flip it over where it has the wet spot in the dough, right? And now you can come and place some of the cheese inside of this dough now. You can place some of the filling inside of this like regular. And what you want to do, you want to roll this dough up, right? Roll it up into a log, right? Just like that. Make sure your corners are tucked in. And here's where we have our greased loaf pans, right? So we'll now pick it up and place it to the bottom of the loaf pan, right? It may look small inside of there, but when this rises, trust me, within half an hour, you would see how big it actually gets, right? So we did one with a filling. I'm just going to clean on my counter a little bit. We did one with a filling, and we are going to do a plain one now, right? So as I said, you can fill and you can top these with anything you desire, right? Little bit of flour on the surface again, right? Press it out a little bit and fold it in, right? So this, right, perfect here. So now you turn this like that, spread it out slightly, right? And then you come back with your rolling pin, right? As you can see, the dough is still wet, so it sticks to the rolling pin, right? So you come now, add a little bit of flour onto the dough, right? Right? This is a wet dough. You are going to get these types of problems in and between, right? So you flip it out. This already has some of the seasoning on it, right? Some of the seasoning throw away on the counter, so it actually incorporates in the dough, which is fine. Roll it out in a rectangle shape, right? And once again, you come and you roll it. You want to roll it tight and snug, right? So roll it tight and snug, right? Make sure your corners are tucked in properly. Bring back your loaf pan, right? And you pick it up and you place it in. As you can see, they are all right. We kind of got cut off there just now. So in this case now, what I will do is I will sprinkle a little bit of thyme on top of this, right? And leave it now. So now we are going to put these to proof. These will go back into the heated area you had it in before. If it's your oven or what, you put it back in a warm, dry place to proof for the next half an hour to 45 minutes. And then you will see what happens then. All right, so we'll see you again soon. All right, guys. So if you are seeing this video, we made mention as to what happened with cannot share stuff via Zoom. So you saw the first two steps of the dough making and going to rise. You saw the next step of the dough rolling and going back to proof, right? I did not get to show you guys a video on prepping on it, how to bake it. So what do you do is, after you have it in the oven proofing for an additional 30 to 40 minutes, you would now want to take it out of the oven and let your oven get to temperature which is 350 degrees Fahrenheit, right? And then now you would like, if you have a spray bottle, you just fill it with water and spray water, right? Actually spray water on the top of your loaves. Or you can sprinkle it with hand. Some persons, they like to baste it with an egg wash. That works perfectly fine. And if you want, you can put additional toppings on top of it like thyme, all-purpose seasoning, onion, celery, whatever, and put it to bake. You bake your hops for approximately 15 to 20 minutes. And then you bake your loaves, your breads, actually for a longer period of time, at least 30 minutes, right? And this is how they come out after, right? So as you can see, this is how the bread dough comes out after it's baked. I did have additional topping of thyme on top of this one. Inside of the bread dough, as you can see, this one had cheese and stuff inside of it, right? Inside of the bread dough, it is soft, right? There are a few air pockets that popped when heat was introduced to it, right? So as you can see, it is soft, and when I tap it, it has a hollow sound. But as you can see, the inside of the bread is baked properly. The top is a lovely golden brown. This one as well, this has more cheese. As you can see inside of here, it has cheese and thyme and additional stuff inside of this one. But this one now, this is what happens now when you do not seal the bread properly, which is closing in the lip properly before you put it to bake. So, persons who have classes on Thursday and Sunday, I will be speaking about this even more and you will understand what is going on, right? And in this case now, this is what happens with the hops. What happened was when I was making my pre-recorded videos, I wanted to keep with the time. Don't know what you count. I've been busy all day. It's a mess. Sorry about that. So, this is what happens as well as with the hops now. The hops has a soft texture as well inside, right? The inside of the hops, it is soft, right? The outside is golden brown all the way around. This has a part to play when you spray the water on top of it, right? In this case, I put thyme on top of this one. You can put any toppings you want on top of your breads and let it bake. This one, I had cheese in it, but the cheese pushed out on the side and it baked outside. But the inside of all my hops are very soft and succulent, right? So, as I mentioned, if you are seeing this video, unfortunately, I cannot share it via live on the Zoom. So I would send information, I would send all the videos to you guys, and you guys can ask me questions personally or in the group chat as to what happens, right? So thank you for looking at this, and you will see all three of the videos shortly.